Hello. Today we're talking about mentors. See, growing up, children are led under the false pretense that mentors are here to actually help us. And for some reason, parents like to show the children only one side of what the world is from a good point of view, and not necessarily from an evil point of view. So you don't really think, sometimes children don't really think that, evil mentors exist in the world, really. Because, see, children are growing up watching cartoons that say that there's a nemesis and an evildoer on the cartoon, and the evildoer is always defeated each time. That doesn't really translate into what extent of damage a person who has evil in their heart and their minds can really partake in and issue into a person's life. Most parents want to associate their children with positive mentors who will help them to understand maturity in a healthy way, mentors who will help them to grow intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, that will take time out to explain to them what's going on in their lives, and ask those questions. If you never ask children questions like, what do you think you'll grow up into? What job do you think you'll have when you grow up? What's your favorite subject in school? Why is it your favorite subject? You never ask children, do you plan on having children? What do you think about marriage? Is marriage something in your forecast or somebody else's? Asking those questions to children and stuff, a lot of times, parents seem to get wrapped up in their own lives, and, they don't really take time to have those deep questions with their children. Some of it is that, parents think that children are getting what they need from schools, from daycare, from other family members. That's not always true. Sometimes you have families who, for generation after generations, refuse to work on their differences, and they are so ignorant and nasty with each other that they can't even show up in public together. So you'll see these types of families, they look strange and weird because they don't really have any types of family functions. And most people who are a part of a family think this is normalcy. Most families plan to get together and spend some time together. How else can you get acquainted with your family? Now, they have programs in the world, and some of the programs that are well known, we know, are the Big Brother, Big Sister program. It's, for mentoring young children and stuff like that. However, with the scrutiny that's going on today, it's difficult to screen people entirely to allow, strangers around your children, because, with the level of energy and insight and, the lack of privacy we receive these days through the satellites and, low energy fields that allow people into our private lives, it's difficult to allow your children around people that you don't know. So they say that they're a mentor. It doesn't really mean that they are a mentor. I think one of the things that I would like to express to my children is, even if you run across a family who looks as if they're a functioning family who really cares and loves for each other, and they've stayed together for a long time, this doesn't mean that they are altogether good people. And in fact, you think that most spiritual people understand that people have the ability to do good and evil. So, teaching your children that these are people, that are connected to our lives, it doesn't necessarily mean that these people mean you good instead of harm. When we have a lot of people who think that they need to compete, they hate to fail, and they hate to lose, it really can destroy a family from the inside out. They aren't really taking time to get to know each other. They're competing against each other. and really killing each other off is what they're doing. Um, and at one time, that's not what family was for. Not really sure if it's, if you can put the blame on the family altogether, organizations that certain members are a part of, a lack of compassion for another individual. However, this world is lacking suitable mentors. I mean, the state of the world today is nothing like the state of the world when in like the 80s, the 70s. And I'm sure like people think that, oh, every generation says that, this, and this. It's like every generation says that, yet every generation is not experiencing what we're experiencing. The lack of respect, the indecency. I mean, to even go into detail about it is trifling. You have people going to stuff that they don't even want to talk about in detail. Excuse me, because it's just too humiliating. I mean, we're going through fads that say that we are not forming intelligent thought as people. And whereas we thought, certain fads were fads because they didn't last forever. A fad would last, as long as, a certain short period of time, like wearing baggy jeans that sag, wearing skinny jeans. Parents could never imagine that would determine a person's sexuality and say that, oh, you're wearing skinny jeans. You wear hair and you're gelling your hair and you're a male. So you must reside with homosexuality. I said, quite frankly, in this time period, we're getting cheated out of our full lifestyle. It is so ridiculous, the lack of training and the lack of respect. It's like the term mind's eye isn't even spoken about on a regular basis. And, once you gather your thoughts together and, follow your roots, you understand that they were older people who spoke clearly and directly and functionally about what gifts are, what endowments are. That's a mentor. A mentor doesn't leave your mind to wonder what's true and what's false when they really know what's true and what's false. So the older folks would say, your third eye, your peak hole, your intuition, your ESP, these are your gifts. These gifts can keep you safe from harm. They can help you to answer questions, give you that sight beyond sight. Because some of these predators and enemies are so intelligent and sly that you may never know they're playing a game on you until it's too late. And at one time, schools were were thought of as a place where there were mentors, the teachers, the counselors, the principal, the nurse, were mentors. They were there to help students. Nowadays, these wicked systems have made it into the school systems, and you really have to keep in touch with the teachers, the principals, because they really don't care about our education these days. And I can say that truthfully, I've had to speak with different teachers and district officers just to fight for equality for my children's education. And I didn't really get encouragement from other adults and parents towards fighting for my children's education. Instead, some of these adults would want to get into my children's minds and have my children think that I care nothing about their education. Because these adults were not confirming for my children, the levels that I've had to go through to fight for their education. I think a lot of mentors get messed up along the way because they start to mentor for the wrong reasons. Once they figure out that they can get a perk from helping somebody else, their mentorship seems to get, sidetracked. And now it's constantly there about the perks, the money, and what they can earn from mentoring. And it's not really about enlightening and saving lives. Other mentors in our communities are police officers, firefighters, politicians. We teach our children on a regular basis, to give those people a certain amount of respect. And even if we don't teach that, the school system's teaching to give those careers and those people a certain amount of respect. Because they're teaching from a one-sided mirror. The school system isn't teaching our children about when, some of these police officers and soldiers have mental breakdowns, emotional breakdowns in life, because they're dealing with too much stress and they don't know how to deal with certain scenarios. How they're dealing with domestic violence within their relationships at home. And though they have access to great health care and counseling, they're not partaking in that. They're not partaking in that counseling because, they're saving themselves the humiliation of having to talk openly about what they're actually going through. And these people are paid on the payroll of the state and the government. The school isn't, airing stories about corrupt police officers who arrest people falsely, who put false charges on people, and, who will taint crime scenes just to meet their quota. So therefore, to a certain extent, we cannot rely just on a basic education from our school systems. We must teach our children and supplement our children's education, as those are not mentors. And if something happens, in the community, your child is in the wrong place at the wrong time, they interact with a police officer and they don't know their rights. That they have the right to sit silent. They don't have an attorney with them. They don't have to speak to the police. And they shouldn't get beaten and misused or locked away an extra period of time just because they don't want to speak to a police officer without their attorney present. Our children at a certain age should understand that they can plead the fifth. That is their right as a citizen. And the police officer is supposed to validate that right away. They should know that a police officer cannot arrest them without telling them what they are charged with. They must have something that they've charged the person with to arrest the person. A police officer cannot enter into a person's home without legal cause directly from a court. They have to get permission and petition the court to enter someone's home. Children should know that, wiretapping, eavesdropping, listening in to people's conversations via their phones or in the privacy of their home is illegal in most states. And they have the right to bring that up in court if they need to, bring that up in court and say, how did they get this information if I didn't tell them that information myself? They need to understand that, yes, these people are sworn in to protect and serve in our community. It doesn't mean that they are perfect and upstanding all the time. It doesn't mean that they do not do evil deeds. Because that would say that they are perfection, and they are not. That is a place of employment for these people. So starting to understand the corruption that happens to the young mind as, they're taught from a one-sided mirror. It's not even a 3D type of teaching. It's just, believe in what I say. I'm your parent. I'm the adult. I'm the teacher. I'm the police. I'm the judge. Believe in what I say and what you think. And when you come against me to say, no, I object, I have a difference of opinion, how should the child's opinion matter. Um, the friends that the parents and the adults choose to have in their lives, you know, should the parent teach the children, these people are in our lives, and we help each other to get through life at different points of time. Yet I'm not to say that these you can trust these people completely, because matter of fact, in times of desperation, we don't understand what we might do ourselves to someone else in times of desperation. And it's the reason why the law includes the right to protect oneself. So, for instance, if someone enters your home and they enter your home without permission, you have the right to protect yourself and your home to the fullest extent. Because that person has now put your life in danger, and there's nothing funny about violating someone's private space. Knowing our rights and, applying our rights to our everyday life says, I don't have to put up with you treating me irresponsibly. You may think I'm a person who is not intelligent, and yet you haven't taken the time to actually speak to me directly. So how would you understand my level of understanding and who I am as a person? I know a lot of people like to play games and pranks and stuff via the astral plane, especially when they run across someone who's not as sensitive as other people, and they have not had their privileges turned on in the astral plane yet. So, excuse me. You run across idiots that like to play jokes and games in the astral zone against people. Because one of the reasons they like to use the astral zone is it's a passive-aggressive person's way of feeling as if they've punked somebody else and outsmarted someone else without having the repercussions of getting arrested for some of their actions and thoughts projected in the astral zone. Right now, it's not against the law to use the astral zone, your third eye, and your psychic energy to disrupt and corrupt someone else's life. Perhaps in the future, that will stand as a form of negativity and hatred that's, punishable according to the law. Because quite frankly, if someone gets into your mental space, your upper zone of your astral plane, your chakras, it can really damage your life. To the point where you are thrown off and off balance, you're not aligned properly. And you have to think that it takes a low amount of compassion for a person to know that a person is unaligned and leave them unaligned. That's not a mentor. Because a mentor is going to teach you properly first. They're going to at least teach you the formula and the standard. When your teacher stood there and they taught you your ABCs and your 1, 2, 3s, and they further taught you 2 + 2 = 4. Whether you're 15 or 35, 2 + 2 still equals 4. The formula hasn't changed. So your teacher at least taught you that portion correctly first. And then the teacher's allowed to, mark your grade off from there. If you have an incorrect answer. Because they know what the formula is. You know what the formula is. A mentor will talk to you in truthfulness. A mentor is not really there to mislead you and misguide you constantly. There are different types of people in life. So if you seek a mentor to teach you evil deeds, because that's the stimulation that you grow from, then understanding who you are as a person can help to clarify a lot of different subjects and, misunderstandings that are occurring in life today. A mentor wouldn't suggest to a male that's just growing up and doesn't really know what masculinity is to have intercourse or any type of sexual relations with any type of male in any way. Because that mentor is old enough to understand how some of the damages occur in a person's life to have that type of activity happen too young and at a time when the mind is not ready for that type of activity. See, I'm not sure that these people today who are standing up to say that they are mentors and helping our community are really talking about these deep, dark topics. And, they aren't talking about the deep, dark topics that are happening to our community and the means to, keep down incidences of trouble and this, that, and other. But the greatest way to keep down incidences is to educate your public. So if you don't educate your public about not just the Holy Spirit, which is the spirit of, supposedly of goodness and of light, but to educate your community about, the wicked spirits that are traveling through this world, influencing people to do stuff that they might not normally do in life. Because it can make the difference, because if you are around people who are very judgmental and they like to accuse and finger point and say, oh, well, I heard that you've done this, and this, in your life. And they're into gossiping, and these gossipers are included in, spiritual worshipers. Spiritual worshipers are still sinners who are not perfect. So, for the person to have their ammo and say, there's all kinds of stuff that's going on in this world that's unexplained. Now, it kind of seems weird that the spirits of negativity is ending up around the same people in the same place, this amount of times. It's almost as if saying that lightning strikes in the same place. We know that at one time we thought of lightning as a natural occurrence. It was not controlled by man. So we wouldn't expect for lightning to strike in the same area, as many times in one lifetime, because that would look kind of weird to have lightning strike in the exact same place that this, particular people are at. And if we thought of lightning as issues in life, these issues in life are manifesting in people's lives, this many times. It says that, no, this is not mentorship. This is supernatural that's happening. And to really talk about the terms of supernatural versus natural. Because, some people have gotten deemed mentally unstable. Dealing with people who are willing to keep the truth from the people in totality says that, those people are not mentors. In totality. They have not, adjusted to the fact that they have the capability of projecting good and evil. Instead, we have people building whole facades around their lives. And they think of these facades as protection for themselves, where they are willing to lie to other people about who they are as a person, and they put on this front each day as if they're Clark Kent, Superman. And Clark Kent had a job at the newspaper station, and he would travel into his job dressed modestly. And then as soon as there was a crime committed, he dashed into the restroom somewhere, changed into his Superman costume, and off and away he's fighting off criminals. And this is the distorted mindset that we are living with today. We have people who are allowed to grow up from childhood watching cartoons thinking that this is what real life is. If they just save this person's life, if they keep this person in a victimized state of living, then, they don't have to feel so bad about themselves. The influence that travels into our lives in a way that feels non-invasive, it actually feels good. It's harmful energy, because it's influencing our lives in a way that is contradicting what we stand for as people. So, how do you talk to a child about good touch and bad touch when you know that people have spiritual energy, excuse me, spiritual energy and spiritual pressure, they can use in a sexual sense, in a spiritual form? How can you protect your children and your family from, spiritual predators or sexual predators who will use this sexual energy, against our children? How to explain to a child who's never experienced sexuality in the first place that this is possible to happen. And then you have other people who, other adults who aren't backing each other. They aren't saying that this is actually happening, just so they don't have to agree with another person. And so, they aren't worried about sometimes, the damage that's done to a person mentally, emotionally, spiritually. How these residues of negativity accumulate in the person's life and their aura that they're carrying, their energy, and starts to affect their lives and the people around them. Because they aren't really teaching people how to cleanse their spiritual self, how to cleanse their energy fields. They aren't teaching people protection against light and dark. Most places of spirituality would have you think that people of light and energies of light are of helping, that they have no power to hurt. And then again, if there's a misunderstanding about if a person is of light versus a person who is of darkness, and that person of light has a being of light come against them, do they think that that power would hurt them or help them? In terms of learning what your mentorship is, because if we have influence in organizations who keep us from forming as families in a healthy manner, that we are not spending time and fruitfully teaching our children, our young ones at home, that makes them gullible for growing up into a world where they look and seek for guidance outside of their parents' realm of understanding. We have lock-key children that are on steroids. And I'm talking about lock-key children who used to sit at home, who sit at home now for long periods of time without any type of parental structure. And these forces and influences know exactly why. They're keeping the parents and the children separated so that they can keep that weakness and that dysfunction going as a means to say, we will solve your issue for you. We know exactly what the issue is. See, in a former time period, there were no organizations such as CPS, and the state wouldn't dare overstep a parent's boundaries to say that the parent is not in control of their own household. Because spirituality said that, the Lord wouldn't give us what we cannot take care of. Our Creator wouldn't dare give us what we could not take care of. So, to have, people in a community influencing households and families, not caring about the destruction they're doing, to separate families. There are certainly no parents who are perfect. There are no adults who are perfect. We are each learning each day as we travel through life. And so as we get older, we have to try to forgive ourselves and forgive our older people in our lives for what they didn't know. For the stuff that they knew and they didn't tell us, for the the guidance that they didn't give to us, because they are not perfect people. They too will face a judge at on their judgment day, let's say. And yet we have to understand that though we try to give all we can to our children in this lifetime, we cannot. Some lessons are left for our children to learn at a time that's decent for them to learn it. We can live a whole lifetime and never learn all that's associated with this world and this lifetime. So, to keep weakening structures and family structures just because it's easy, it's simple, just because you're teaching other people where somebody else's weakness is, and you may not want that weakness to happen to you. So if it happens to you, you want to understand what's happening. And other people say it's not really a gainful mentor who would understand what a person's weakness is, and then rather it's their family structure, rather it's a mental, emotional weakness, spiritual weakness, and 10, 15, 20 years later the same weakness is there. They really hadn't tried to strengthen those weaknesses. And I'll tell you again, when people you have adults who hide from children their exercises that they do to strengthen their eyes, their exercises they do to strengthen their ears, to listen, to hear, and strengthening their senses, physically, emotionally, intellectually, visually, and audibly. And they aren't teaching their children what exercise they do, to move and strengthen their eyes, and how important their eyes are to, help keep safety within their realm of understanding in life. When, a parent understands what the astral plane is and how your chakras need to align and how that energy feels coursing through your spine, what your roots are, and not just metaphorically saying your background, but your roots, your spiritual roots that actually connect to the earth. And they aren't talking to their children about that, especially if they've experienced that happen in life. You cannot rely on them completely as a mentor. You must find ways to educate yourself. And one of the things that some of our purists and naturalists do is to thank the universe. To thank the universe in a way that replenishes the universe, because the universe sometimes will give to us what we need. Because when we're sitting in service on Sunday, we're saying an actual name as far as like Jehovah. And Jehovah's the creator of, the universe and all it is. And yet the universe has energies and powers that have not gotten unlocked yet, that we are not giving thanks for, so it's not fully full circle. A mentor might even actually help a person who is dealing with social awkwardness and self-awkwardness. They do not feel good about themselves as a person. And they may give them exercises to do as far as, force yourself to stand in front of the mirror clothed, and then force yourself to stand in front of the mirror unclothed. Each time, give thanks for each portion of who you are and each portion of your autonomy, including your hair, your eyelashes, your tongue, your esophagus, your lungs, the cellulite on your thighs, the stretch marks, and anything else you see, any other perfection and flaw you see about yourself. Give thanks. And stop allowing other people to take your power falsely, to take your fragments of your soul away from you, deteriorating who you are piece by piece. Say your daily affirmations. When you feel angry and disgusted about something, say it, think it, allow yourself. To live in denial is to take away from your power and your energy. Force yourself at times. If you have unresolved issues as far as relationships that weren't really relationships, they were fictitious relationships. They weren't full relationships. They were relationships sent through spite and wickedness. Force yourself to talk to the person you were in a relationship and get an understanding with that person. Understand that you are not in a relationship now and this particular time period. Talk to the person. Understand, how you helped each other, how you hindered each other, what influences were left in each other's lives. To not do so would leave empty space and empty matter in your life, and your spiritual imprint, and your mental imprint, and your emotional imprint. And you can never really fully love a person you get into a relationship with until you get through the relationships you've already gone through. A lot of times we are people pleasers and we like to please other people according to what their expectations are. This doesn't normally help us as people because we are individuals. We were delivered into this world at different times, and though they try to conform us, we have different spirits than each other. We have different mental makeups. We have different needs emotionally. And so we must know who we are as a person first and to understand what our needs are, because a person who is diabetic has different needs than a person who is not diabetic. So if you know that you grew up in a weak structure and you don't perhaps find that out until later on in life because you never knew what you were missing in the first place. Life felt normal. You had nothing really to compare it to. As an adult, you now get the opportunity to figure out who you are as a person, who you are to your community. You get to figure out, what type of persons you'll have in your life. And you can do this with all certainty. You can figure out what you need if you enjoy having conversations with intellectual people, because it's intellectually stimulating. They will challenge you on those levels. Those are the type of people you might invite into your life. If you enjoy dealing with people who are emotionally aware, they are very in tune with themselves emotionally, and they can pick up on what you need emotionally. And you have a void emotionally in your life. Instead of looking desperate, going through all of these fruitless relationships that never really seem to work out, try having a platonic relationship with people you refuse to have sex with, and allow them to know, are you saying I can't count on you as a person unless we're having sex? Are you saying that, you're not really there for me fully unless I give myself to you in a sexual way? And challenge that person to answer you correctly and honestly. Because there's nothing more freeing than to have someone who shares the truth in an honest manner with you. Now, if somebody was misinformed and they told you some lies and stuff because they were misinformed themselves, that's something different. Yet if a person is honest enough with themselves and they're honest enough and open enough to share with you, some honesty and truth, it's really fulfilling. It really can wake you up and enlighten you emotionally and intellectually. And a lot of times we seem to misconstrue what affection is versus admiration. So we tend to think that maybe someone was flirting with another person because when they talked to the person or when they saw the person, they seemed excited and they seemed joyful to spend time and speak with a certain person, and they don't seem that way with us. Sometimes we misconstrue what we saw. And we might have witnessed the person having an aha moment. A light bulb went off in their mind and they had an understanding and a connection that way. It wasn't that they were flirting with each other. They just understood each other in a way that other people hadn't understood them prior. So it may have made them have a reaction that seemed as if they were happier or joyfuler with that particular person. See, we sometimes have our insecurities that we have to work on so that we don't put our insecurities onto other people. So if we have an issue with talking to other people about certain subjects, because that's not what we were used to doing when we were younger, we might force ourselves to start having open conversation with other people. If we have insecurities to say that, I think people judge me according to what my looks are. Force yourself to ask a person. You might find a person who's not going to stand offended if you ask them that question, if they're offended by according to what you look like, if they're judging you and how they're judging you according to your looks. You might have spent time around people who made you feel insignificant and stupid. And now you carry that insecurity with you as a person. And so, furthering your education, finding people who will invest in the fact that everyone has some type of intelligence about themselves. It might register in different areas, yet we have intelligence. So finding people who are willing to accept you for the type of intelligence you have and the type of intelligence you don't have, in a way that's not totally consuming who you are as a person and your personal resources. Knowing our personal space and our personal limitations helps us to protect our personal zones. Our home is a place for us to rejuvenate and to rest and to meditate. That is why we need our spiritual pressure to force those energies outside of our home set, so that we can have the space and the energy and the time to possibly mentor someone else. As if we're walking around with a mind fog, emotionally turned off, where our hearts are obstinate, how can we possibly help someone else in a gainful manner? Some people call this wearing rose-colored glasses. People like to always think of goodness, and the world is of goodness, like saying that the world is still square and the world is circle. Excuse me. Yet, some people say they've experienced enough, damage in life to understand that there is good and evil in the world. And they're not really walking around with a mindset that says that, that they are completely free from evildoing and people who partake in evil ways. It says that sometimes our family structures like to assign us labels that say that we're evil and they're good, and therefore they're taking a half of who we are as a person, and we can't possibly live a balanced, positive life if we're unaligned. Then we're looking for that in other people. We must remind ourselves that as one whole person, we have good and evil intentions. I wasn't going to steal that pencil off of that desk, and yet I stole the pencil off of the desk. Good and evil intentions. I saw this person driving for this parking space, and I hurried and pulled in to the parking space, knowing that the person had waited for that parking space. Good and evil intentions. So we must take responsibility for our own actions and our own thoughts against others. If we are still projecting hatred against someone else, according to something that happened to us at an earlier period of time, we have not sought to honestly resolve that issue, even through starting to talk about and humiliating issue. I think most adults and most young people today have experienced humiliating issues. It's no reason for us to sit here and say we're not discussing certain topics because it's humiliating at times. Because it's different than discussing a topic where it's dangerous to discuss. You know that hatred exists just to hurt and harm a person who wants to discuss a certain topic. So, understanding, what we're missing in life